Okay, so we'd be in here choked up, and we just do it like right. No cradling, left, no cradling. You can drop the hands down, you do right, left. We would do throw, catch, switch, throw, catch, switch. So they're switching every single time. And that's without cradle. You want to isolate all those things without the cradle. And then you can start adding cradles in, and you can do one cradle and throw. You can do one cradle, switch, throw. So you can add and build up on that, but like you can change it up so you're practicing that. But you definitely want to isolate and just not let them cradle every single time. And you want to control how their partner passing in the beginning, so that you're really working on technique. Don't let them just do, okay, let's just partner pass and warm up. Like have a routine in mind or something you want to teach them. As you get better and as you progress throughout, your time with it, that's when you would start to advance and now do offside catching. Where you're catching from this weak side. Again, it's now doing that, and then you can add a cradle in on that side, and then switch and bring it across. So the cradle on the weak side is the same on the strong side as you would on that weak side. So everything's the same on both sides, the technique, but the wrist, you just have to turn your wrist so it's kind of just reverse C. Sorry, I forgot to go over that with you guys. So everything, the cradle in here, you just turn your wrist so your knuckles are not going up, and it's that, okay? So that's where you would want to develop that, as you progress through, your different weeks, and make it more challenging for them each week. And maybe some kids are still on the basic, and other kids are further along, and that's how you deal with that. You say, okay, you do this in partner passing, you guys do this. Divide them up in groups based on what they need, and have them, be strategic so they're getting better at what they need to get better at. So get to know your kids in that sense and know what they need to work on. So then, on the move, one of the drills I really love to do is it's a group of 3. You're about 15 yards apart. So there's one kid in the middle who's working, and this set of girls has a ball, and this girl has a ball too. So what you do is I call it 3-man, 2 balls. So it's 3 people, there's 2 balls, so I call it 3-man, 2 balls.
We have a flow sheet, I think, that says drills on here, right, on the drills. It's just a blank sheet.
So what we do is, she starts with one girl, this girl throws it, she catches it, and she gives it back to her. She continues to go, she touches her stick, and then she turns around, and so now she's catching on the move this way, and she catches it. She throws it back to this girl, but she continues, she touches her stick. So it's a little bit of fitness too, okay? And they just go, and you go for 30 seconds, 45 seconds, whatever you need. You say 5 catches, and then switch. So then the next person goes in the middle. So it's a group of 3, and they're doing it. And that's when you can do all the different catches too, on the move. So, does that make sense? So again, first thing, now on the move, don't let them cradle. Make them have to run. Now they have to practice going on the move. And then run and touch her stick. And now ask her back here, I'm catching it, I throw it, touch her stick, turn around, catch it. So that's how they're working. Now, they don't want to stop to catch. That's what they're going to do. So when they turn and they see the ball, they're going to stop like this, catch it, and then they're going to run. Okay, so encourage them. If you miss it, fine. Just keep going because you want them to practice running and catching on that run. Okay? And that's going to help them with shooting. Okay? Another thing you could do to teach them to practice the correct movement and passing is, it's kind of shooting too. You have them pick up a ground ball. Oops. Okay? Pick up a ground ball. They got to bring it back. Okay? So if they can't catch it, with the older kids, if they can pass it and go to goal, you can do that. But if the younger kids can't do that, I always say pick up a ground ball. Practice your ground ball pickups, right? Here, but then you got to make sure they bring it back and they just run to the goal. I say no cradling. I made Josie do this when she was a freshman in college because I had to isolate her technique and run, get back, and now shoot. So that's another way to practice passing technique is if they're having a hard time with partner passing is to just pick up the ground ball, get it here, and practice shooting. And when I tell them to shoot, pick a target, aim for, high, because kids will always shoot low because they're doing this. That's why they always shoot low, because it's coming here rather than here, and they're not working on that follow through, which you want when you pass 2, so you want to tell them to go high, because that's kind of the level of where you want to get that pass anyway. I said, if you missed it high, that's fine, but stop throwing it at the feet, because that's not helping them with their passing technique. So I'll do that. I would definitely do that with the younger kids, and then you can add 1 cradle and take the shot, so they're practicing. It's a build-up. I just call it, well, that's the 3-man tube. Yeah, I call that 3-man tube ball.
Ground ball, no.
This one's
cradle.
ground ball, no cradle, just ground ball. You can then you put dodging in there. You can incorporate and build up on all these drills. You can then take it to the next level when you get there. So then you can have a dodge, a defender, and take a shot. So you're practicing all those techniques, but it's important to take the time to teach them in the beginning.
The thing that I was just going to say was you really want to make sure that their cradles are deliberate. So why she was having you just catch, run, and shoot is a lot of times these kids come in and they're cradling like this, and then they don't know when to stop cradling and when to get in their position to shoot. So they should know that cradling is separate from their feet. Like I was saying before with the throwing, because I feel like a lot of times they run and it's very systematic. So it should be how your defender comes at you, then you do that big cradle and then you cradle back. You're ready to shoot. Maybe you throw in 1 extra cradle, or maybe you don't. Maybe you take a step without a cradle. So it's just kind of breaking them of that habit before they start, get running and doing the same cradle over and over, or just running in with it really close to their face. Just having them get used to being in that ready position so they know when to release the ball. That's a lot of issues is they run way close to the goal because they don't really want to get back in that position because they're real tight in here and they feel fine with that and they don't want to get their arms back. So just having them releasing earlier and being in that position from the start.
Another drill you can do is stationary but it's a box. So they're practicing switching and always catching with their outside hand. So, we're going this way, the ball's just swinging this way, it just goes in the box, and so that they can, practice their outside hand, making sure they catch it left, switch. You can have them practice rolling away and doing that. As you progress, you can add defense in here, so you can have 2 defenders in here. That's kind of playing defense. So then they could go either way. They could go across. So you make it block. You just build it up. You can start with 1 kid, and then 2 defenders. You could do it sometimes we do it okay, if you get 5, once you get 5 passes, the next defender's coming in. So you kind of can just add defense. But depending where you are, you probably want a little bit of pressure so that you want to start to get them in that kind of game situation where they're going to have pressure. The other thing in this is you want to also have them pop in and pop out, which is also good. The other thing we do is we actually put this around the bowl cage. So we do a 7, I call it the perimeter passing drill. So you have, 6, 7, so you have 7 people around. Again, she's running in. I do it like a triangle, so you're running in and then you pop out to the ball. So it's a V. You're popping out towards that ball, but in, pop out, fast, and as she turns, she's popping in, popping out. And we keep going usually one direction, but again, it makes them use 2 hands. It makes them use their right hand, and then they got to throw with their left hand if they're going this way. If we're going this way, they have to catch with their left hand, and they got to then throw with their right hand. And they all cheat. They all want to do it in their right hand all the time, do everything. And I'm a stickler about it, and I know they hate it, but it makes them better, so we do it around goal too. We don't really add deep, you could have a defender on her too, so that she's popping in, popping out with a defender on her, and you just tell them to be dummy. You don't tell them to be real, you don't tell them to go intercept that, but it also can work with your defense when you're on the flip side. I always try to have 2 sides of drills, but you can have your defense then practice seeing with ball and girl. You can have them practice coming in, coming out, getting pressure on the ball. And these guys, sometimes I'll watch younger kids play and they're like, a kid up here and she's here. I'm like, well, you need to protect your 8, so get back here. So you can use that as a way to teach defense as you're doing a stick work drill too. Does that make sense? So you want to always incorporate a lot of different concepts in drills.
Timing is like a really hard concept for younger kids to learn. For them, as this girl's turning, that they should be coming in, touching the and coming back out. Sometimes that's really hard for them to grasp when they should be like leaving their defender and trying to suck their defender back in and then popping out hard. But just a general thing for you to like emphasize to them would be you can't catch with your feet still. So that's just one of the main focuses of popping in and popping out. It's like losing your defender for that split second and getting a little bit of space. So if they're not timing it perfectly well, as long as they're catching and not standing. So if they, misread the timing of that pop in and pop out, they just do it again. If that girl's not ready and she drops the ball, just come in and come out and do it again. It doesn't have to be one perfect timing of the cut. They just keep going, keep popping in, coming back out until that girl's ready to pass the ball. That way that they're catching out on the movement on the outside.
Something else I like to teach them is asking with the correct hand. So whenever we cut this way, we're asking with our left hand here. They always want to keep it in their right hand. Guess what? As they get older, the defender sticks here. So you don't want to encourage that. Again, it's encourage them to ask with their outside hand so that they're catching this way. So if the ball's coming this way and they're curling to it, left. Okay? Now, if they're having a hard time with that and they can't make that pass, like maybe you have a coach that can make those passes in, so they're practicing that, but that's when they'll stop and try to catch that. If you're trying to get them to just use that, you can balance that out with, having them stop, just practice it, and then getting that shot off. They'll get better at it. But don't let them always do it with right hand. Make them ask with the correct hand when you cut. So if the ball's coming from this side, this is your right hand. If you're going this way, it's your left hand. Ask them for it. So it's just good to get that ingrained in the beginning. That you're telling them to do it, and it's okay. You're going to drop the ball regardless, both hands. So you might as well practice both. What I try to tell the girls is, you're going to make mistakes. You can't play to be perfect. You're going to drop the ball. It's about doing it again. The more you do it, the better you're going to get at it. So don't stay in your comfort zone. Get outside of it. Practice both. That's why we're doing both to begin with. All that stuff. Just really push your stick work. Because I can't tell you how many kids I get that are really want to throw with their right hand, and they're at a huge disadvantage because they can't go left. And just the higher you play, even high school is so different now. The kids are so much better. When I played, and the top high school teams in the area, they can be right in there too. So just continue to push them even when you're younger playing that. Like in soccer, you wouldn't just teach them to kick right hand, right foot, right? You make them do everything both feet. It's the same concept as teaching lacrosse.
For these coaches, last summer was the first time I worked with first graders at a summer camp, and I realized that the height difference was probably the hardest thing for me to throw to them. So what I ended up doing is I did a similar drill with them, but I got on my knees and I tossed the balls instead of throwing. So I'm sure you guys would have thought of that, but it was just something that it took a few reps for me to realize that even though I think that I'm a pretty good lacrosse player, it was really hard to aim and be on the same level throwing that short. So just just kneeling down there and just tossing balls to them and making sure that they're high, so they're really focusing on, like, you're gonna want to toss them, really soft ones, but then just discourage basket catching. So make sure if you're gonna toss them to them, make sure that they're high and soft so that they can still get with it.
Okay. And I forgot to tell you with that 3-man 2-ball drill with the one person, you can always add a defender on there too. So you could add defense in there if you wanted to for the older kids or whatever. You can always add defense to, I think, drills. I love to do like stick work like this, and then I always love to do some sort of possession game. So if you make it a circle, sometimes we do a 5v5 in there. Based on your numbers, you can do a 3v3, 4v4, whatever you want to do. But make it a competition now. And they're doing right hands, left hands. I make rules. You can't stand. You have to be moving. If you do it left-handed, you can get 2 points. Make it fun.
You can only hold the ball for
you can only hold the ball for 3 seconds. Like you can have different things in your mind of what you want to encourage based on your kids. Do they hold the ball too long? Then limit the time they can hold it. If they're standing to catch, say you have to catch and move. But we make it a competition, and so like the team wins. So I always add competition in whenever we do some sort of possession drill. It makes it fun for them. So usually what I do with that is that the one team has it, and then when the other team gets it, they're now on attack, and now the other team's on defense. Based on your numbers, how big your team is, sometimes we have new defenders come in, so if you turn it over, your team's off, new team comes on, to kind of keep it fun and get the subs going in. You can make it a box, you can put it around goal, saying, okay, after 3 passes, go to goal, or something like that. You know, you can always incorporate it to goal, you can just put it into space, but I love to do like some sort of partner passing technique stuff, and then do something with a little bit of pressure, because honestly you're going to have pressure when you're playing, so you need to practice that under pressure.
Yesterday, we were doing a really good job, the 5th and 6th graders, on the defensive side. They were on the offense. What the trouble that I was trying to teach was the attackers being in a one-on-one situation, being able to lose the defender. And we were talking about changing speed and cutting and faking, but I don't know if you have any tips to share on what I can share with them if it's in a one-on-one situation.
So they're without the ball?
The attack has the ball one-on-one, trying to go to goal, and our defense is all over them. And there was one girl who she just kind of shuffled left to right. She didn't know what to do, and so we kind of stopped and we talked about some things. But I'd love to hear how you teach that.
So she's getting high pressure. She has the ball. She's got to make space for herself to kind of make a 1v1 move.
Yeah.
One thing I'll teach them right away is back up.
Okay.
3 steps immediately. So, or sometimes I just say you need to get rid of the ball. So, but you're right. Like a lot of times you'll have a kid with the ball. She's kind of standing there. And the kid's coming out here, and she's kind of like,
yeah.
You know. So one thing I'll be like, get out. I'll teach them that. Just sprint away. See if you create a gap.
Okay.
So you want to create space so that you can then re-dodge. So I would do that. And what I would do is practice it just like this. So Josie can't move, so it helps me, but I make sure they're protecting it and that they're not here.
Okay.
So I think the first thing is making sure that if they're here, shoulder, stick. Run away, keep it protected, and then you can kind of turn your body so now you can face up and make a move.
Okay.
If that kid comes with you, what you're trying to do is then curl around them and beat them on a foot race.
Okay.
So if Josie runs at me, so let's say I back up and she runs with me now, I'm leading her out and then I'm trying to roll around her.
Okay.
And like beat her with
Give
my
you more
speed.
space to get to the
Yeah.
goal. Okay.
So if she's stepping out, I get her to step out with me. If I have that space to be dodged, then I will. If she comes with me, then it's kind of like, okay, I'll bring her out. She's on my back now, and I can feel her. I'll just try to get her on that backside, turn, and take it hard to go that way.
Okay. That'll be good.
So you can, isolate that and practice that.
Mm-hmm.
What I would tell your other kid is maybe that's what you're doing with teaching 1v1s of now make space. So what will happen is that I'm here, but now as I come back, there's another teammate of mine and the defender standing there, so creating space. And the girl has the ball, make sure that you're clearing space for her so she has space to come into to challenge. And that's a hard concept to teach.
Mm-hmm.
We sometimes teach it in zones. So I'll do stuff like, okay, and I'll teach spots to help them. You can number spots on the field, you can teach zones. So if I taught a zone, like a zone concept, like this is zone 1, this is 2, 3, 4, you can, I guess the numbers are upside down for me. This is 1, this way, 2, 3, 4. So I would say, okay, we're going to try to go in zone 1, so no one else should be in there. You guys got to be in the opposite of the zone. One thing I always tell them is that you can never enter the zone with the ball. I always teach that. That's like step 1 with lacrosse is you do kind of teach it. I do say 10, it's a quadrant. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. If the ball's in 4, you cannot come into here. You cannot cut and come in here. You must cut and go out 3 or 1. So that's one thing I always kind of teach from the beginning. Keep space for that ball carrier. And then you can also use that to say, okay, so zone 4 and 1, as she comes in, you're going to try to do a draw and dump or something like that. So these zones are now working together. No one should cut into that. You guys got to stay off ball here. The other thing we do is, so that's one concept. Another concept I teach is, let me just actually, you can do whatever works for you. You can number it. sometimes I number it like this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you can say, okay guys, attack, we want to hit the ball to 1, and we want to look for a feet inside, okay? Or we want to set up a challenge for number 6 in this spot, and this is always number 6. It's not like the players, just like this spot on the field is 6. So if you want to, because a lot of kids are right-handed, or 5 is good because it's the dead center. You know, if we get it to 5, we want to now create that space and challenge in there. So with attack, what you're always trying to do is look to draw away the defense, create some space, some lanes to attack. So you can do it that way. Sometimes this year I used a clock for my team. So they knew 12 o'clock was here, 6 o'clock's here. You know, it depends, like whatever works. But you can do spots like this. You can also use the concept of the zones inside, which you need to probably teach them anyway, so they know not to cut into the space with the ball. So that's something I think like attack concepts 101 is something you need to teach them, is just the spacing on the field, where you want to not go, and how you want to create ball opportunities for the ball carrier. I think it's important that, so one of the things with attack is different concepts. So based on what you want to do on that attack sheet, the attack concepts, 1v1 moves, you know, you guys, there's lots of different moves, but basically you're teaching them some sort of stutter and dodging to the left. A lot of kids will always stay here. You can come back here and bring it back to shoot, but you know, switching, like that stutter step, kind of having to move. A lot of kids will just come here and just pull. Try to get them to use some sort of stutter and then exploding into that space. Roll dodges and crease dodges are really better for the crease than up top. It's just kind of hard units. You don't see a whole lot of girls doing roll dodges from up top. It's basically just dodging with a face dodge to the right, or a split dodge where you're splitting the defender and coming inside. But things you want to teach is like front door and back door. These are terms that everyone uses. It's basketball terminology too. So a backdoor cut, so you're off ball, and sometimes here in this kid, and here's her defender. A backdoor cut is obviously going behind her and cutting into the middle, and sometimes that really works because defense, when they're this young, they scare the ball carrier. So teaching them to backdoor as a simple play, you know, it works. Front door cut is when you're going in front of the kid. But you want to teach this to everyone because it's important that they all understand what that means. Draw and dump, you know, is, let's say you have 2 girls here on the elbow and here. You're looking to kind of challenge in the space here, see if you'll draw this girl to double, and then she cuts, and it's a dump pass. It's different than a backdoor and front door cut in the sense that this kid's purposely trying to challenge to draw her and then to dump it. Where at any point, just to get your kids to clear through, you're saying your front door on your kid or back door on your girls, create that space, versus a draw and dump, which is a little bit more strategic. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. You can also do give and go. Here, pass it, immediately cut, and we'll throw the ball back. So just things to go over. I know that's really a lot harder for the kids to execute something like that because it involves passing and precision. So that might be a harder concept, but maybe that's down the road you get as the 5th and 6th graders, maybe they can get that or something like that. But 1st and 2nd graders, you know, you're doing more of the draw and dump, or just having the kid just cut and looking for it rather than really trying to do a back and forth. But those are things you want to create in your offense, you know, teaching them these core concepts, you know. Really in a game, I'll just tell you what, even my kids they just kind of do their own thing in the game anyway. So while you're practicing on this, don't get stressed out in the game, you know, kind of let them have fun and play. But it's important that they're learning these concepts in practice because you can build off it eventually once they get it. And as they get 1st and 2nd, 3rd and 4th and 5th and 6th, hopefully they really get to understand it as they're older. And then they're not too young to understand it. They're not, you know. So I think you guys do need to do it and teach them. There's a difference between picks and screens. Pick is when, you know, we have rules that for a pick, So if the defender's here, 9 out of 10 times, even my own team, they don't pick the defender, they pick their own teammate off. So when I teach them to pick, I'm gonna come up, set a pick on the defender. They'll just set in space. So set it on the defender. I love kids who play basketball because it always helps, but you're not seeing that as much. But come up, set the pick here. The rules in girls lacrosse is you can't set a blind pick. A blind pick is Josie's the defender's turn around. I can't come up behind her back and set a pick like this. Okay? That's a girl's rule. You have to come in her vision and you have to give a little space for her to come around. So when I teach picking, I have a defender just stand there and I just run up and I show them this is legal, this is illegal. You know, you can't do this and you can't move. Okay? So when I'm here and let's say she's trying to get around me, I can't move to stop her. Like I gotta kind of stand and then I gotta plan. I can roll whatever, but I can't try to stop the defender. I can't try to pick her off again. But that's the pick. What happens is that they come up like this and they just plant on and make it on nobody, so the defender goes right around them. So, you know, it's a hard concept, but it's important to teach a pick.
So you can set it from a blind spot, but you can't stay in that blind area. So you can come up behind her as long as you're setting the pick to the side of her.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So I just have to change my angle to really
Finish
get
angle.
set.
Okay.
Yeah. So if I'm coming behind her, that's fine, but I have to come kind of in her vision here.
And you actually close enough so you're not in shooting space or call it shooting space.
This is the attacker,
Okay.
so they wouldn't be in shooting space.
So I was thinking in the 8 meter, or if you're drawing your defender too. I mean, that's another big thing for this age group is shooting space and getting them to understand. I know you're talking about attack now, but on the defensive side, coming into the 8 meter, that they're.
So whenever I teach picks, the ball's always low,
Okay.
and so that we're usually going, and if we're catching it, we're going straight to
Straight to
goal.
goal.
So that's what I do. I never pick down low and high, because you're right, that's when you need shooting space and all that stuff, but typically I would feed from low and have a kid come up here and pick. I usually do picks high to low. Screen is different than a pick. Okay, so a screen is kind of when it's like a crisscross, I call it. So let's say you have 2 players here. This is a screen. I don't call this a pick. This is when this kid just goes and then she's coming off her back. That's a screen. And a lot of kids don't understand that difference between a pick and a screen. Screens work really well too. I
If
think
this girl stops though, that's when that screen's gonna become illegal. If she-
well, she's really just cutting. You're just kind of timing it so it's like a crisscross type thing. So Josie will start to run, and then I'm just coming off her back. So she's not really setting a pick on my kid. We're just
Getting the
them to
defenders
run
to be.
mushed together.
Right.
Those work a lot. And again, it's usually high to low. You can do screens like this, curls, like this kid comes and this kid comes across and the ball's over here, you're looking to feed. But that's where, like, I'll teach them a scoring play where, okay, the ball's going to be here, we're going to run X.
Right.
And that's what X is. Simple,
Right.
but it's a screen. And, you know, if we want to run a challenge, we call it, you know, pink 1 or whatever, and you know they're going through. So when I teach an offense with this young, I probably kind of teach like a scoring play more. They're not going to get motions that well. They're going to get more of this, but you're teaching them and building off the concepts you're teaching them of what a screen is versus, you know, a pick. And he's down here, a pick, and this kid wants to roll and this kid's coming off. So that's the difference between a pick and a screen. It is advanced, but I think screens work better. Even for college, we screen more than set a real pick.
For picks, like Julie was saying, there needs to be space for that defender to get through, so then you might be thinking, well then how does the other pick work? Because they have space to get through. It's just really important for that attacker to first if this girl comes up and sets a pick right here, it's going to be important for this attacker to first go this way and then come around. If she starts to just see that this girl's setting this pick right here and starts to run this way, the defender's going to come and she's just going to take her defender right around that pick. So again, it's like with the timing, that's a little harder for them to try to plan to go first this way and then come back so their defender runs into that screen. But then with the screens, they're just coming right off of it. So that's why the pick is a little more advanced, because they do have to time getting their defender to move, and as soon as that pick is set, going the opposite way so that they back right up into that pick.
So, does that make sense? So, with whatever you do on attack, I do think over the course of like how you guys are doing your practices and stuff like that, you teach them these different things at some point, because they should know that terminology pretty young coming into the game. Stacks is one thing too. Everyone's like, what do I do with the defenders without the ball? Put them in a stack, you know? And then you have your two kids that are going to do whatever. But I use stacks. You can put two low. You can have them just circle around the crease. I always teach them that. Down the crease, you shouldn't stand there. You should circle, you know? So that just keeps them moving. So occupying the defenders, teaching them that, but we'll do that, we'll have these guys stack. You know, so if you want to do that, that's what I do to get them. They have a hard time of being all balanced and understanding motion. Because even in the 5th and 6th graders that we have, like, they struggle. It's hard. So we kind of do a little bit more like plays like this where you put kids over to the side and really make that space open. And that's really what they're doing in college level and high school. They're kind of doing more plays like that. You can do it a lot of different ways. You can put all 5 kids in the middle and 2v2 play low, where they're working challenges. You know, the hot places to challenges are from here. You have a righty, and up here, kid coming in from this side, you know, and obviously the kid coming here. We don't do a whole lot from these elbows. It's basically here. You don't really come up this way unless you have a lefty. Or come up this way, but these hot spots are basically where you want to practice your challenges from and set up your moves and your offenses and stuff like that. And they will go right. But if you have a kid that loves to go left, or you have a lefty, you know, so just have that in mind. So you're more than want to clear through this side so this kid comes in. What I try to teach early is don't go through a double team. I really try to get the kids to understand that pull out and move it. It's hard, but it's one concept I try to drive in their heads, is that we don't want to just run through a double team.
When they start to see that double coming in, I would say get your arms all the way out and away. You know there's no one behind you because you're in that 77 space, so there's no one behind you. The double's in front of you. Get your arms all the way back and away. Start to run. Turn your feet so you're running that way. You're not just shuffling. You're running back, your stick back, then get into a roll and get out of it. So a lot of times they'll still back up like this. It's just important for them to get their arms out of the way, and don't be afraid because there's no one behind you, so they need to protect with their shoulder and get their arms out of the way.
I think whatever you're doing on offense, you can be as creative as you want. You can do whatever you want, really. But to have maybe, and Rob would point out before when we were talking that you have some sort of system or something that they're learning, and there's some sort of cohesion amongst the team. So as they get older and they stay in the program, they're building on that. I think that is important for our practice plans at Blast. We kind of have the same curriculum for the 5th and 6th grade team, the 5th grade team, the 6th grade team, 7th grade, and 8th grade team. Like they're all kind of doing the same concepts of attack and defense. They're just kind of then modified based on their level. Does that make sense? So I do think that's really important that you guys sit down and have a plan of, okay, these are the concepts we want to go over, how are we going to cover it, kind of make a calendar out, the games. You know, I think defensively, things to talk about, because defense is really a style. There's basically 1v1 footwork. So 1v1s are really important, but where do you want to force? And that's going to really dictate things. Your level, you don't want to force everyone left, right? Or you have the freeze tackling call, so if you're playing good defense, you have to pass it. So you can do a lot of that in your stick work, so you're practicing again to move that ball, but defense is going to, I mean, yes, footwork is key and that they're getting low, so off the defense. And just like 1v1 footwork and trying to get a kid to not go right is so many kids just open their hips up and let the kid just come in with their right hand. So one thing I'm really teaching is really getting to skip out, use it, but you're really stepping up with this left foot, and I call it stepping up, so that they step up and really take that kid away, you know? So if she comes really hard though, I'm gonna have to get back and step. Don't hop, just stand. So I'm really kind of stepping up, but a lot of times you'll just see them open up their hips and not let them go right inside. So first thing is just to overplay them a little bit, how you're coming out, trying to force them to a space they don't want to go. So we'll take that away, and then as she comes, we talk about merging on the highway type thing, so I guess none of them drive, but some sort of like, that's what we use the college, it's like some sort of like as they are coming, you're meeting, rather than a lot of them will like lean to make contact. And, you know, with our game, you know, that's the one thing they call really quickly is that clean leaning and pushing out. So having the arms here, you can do this, and then you have them practice dropping their sticks. So we do a lot of just like, everyone line up on this side, defenders line up here, overplay, and then you practice them merging and kneeing up and dropping their hand and then playing good defense. And once you see these go out, that's the pushing that gets called. But really use your legs. A lot of them are upright and they don't get low. That's why I love basketball is getting low in that basketball position. You know, it's the same thing across, getting low, bending down here and not be standing up. So defense is always, they should hurt, you know. People call it hockey, but you know, field hockey because they're always low here. Same thing, you want to get low and have that stance. So when you're playing at defense, you're overplaying and then you beat them. If they do beat you this way, what I sometimes say is you gotta release off of them. What you'll see is kids just continue to be on their side and then they'll eventually get behind them like that. So like you gotta release, so that means actually back up and then you want to try to make that contact again. I call it bump and release. So that's really a concept I use a lot. Okay, so she's starting to beat you, release, and then try to make that contact again. So bump, release, and do that. So, and I do that on the rolling too, so kids that do roll, because a lot of kids will start to roll. So once, so right here, the kid will put in your right hand now. Once kids start to roll back, again, kids get really tight, and what they do is they just tend to open up and then follow the kid as they roll around them here. Again, as Josie's turning and she rolls, I step back, I release, and then I make that contact again. And so many kids just, they'll do this, and then they'll just circle around. Now that kid's going down with her right hand. So, again, it's here, release, step back, and then establish that contact again.
One
So,
thing I always say.
a lot of that is just that you've got to get them to work on that and isolate that. So then I would have them going, and then practice rolling, and then you practice that. And then you take it to goal, you know. But that's how you build up with that. But it's that, and even if it's a lefty kid, I just say pretend she's a righty because most kids are righty. So we kind of do that.
Off ball for defenders, what language are you using as far as like saying both sides? You know,
Yeah. I will, so,
because we have a lot of girls, you know, we're talking about protect the house. If they're off the 8 meter, don't waste your energy,
Yep.
you know.
yeah. So
You
that's,
know, until they, yeah.
so, yeah. So what we say, right, don't go outside the 8. Protect, you want to protect the 8. You want to protect your goal. That's what I always use. I'm very particular about the side I want my kids to play, my defenders to play. So they're not going to get that. What I tell them to be is always a step closer to the girl with the ball. So if here's the ball and here's your kid, you want to be a slight step closer to her with your stick, you know, here and here. Is that kind of what you're asking in that position?
Yes, or and explaining to the girls, just so we're all consistent on language. You know, a lot of times for the newer players, they're so tight one-on-one with the girls that
Yeah.
they could be beat at any
Right.
one hard cut.
So, right. So one thing I teach them first is, you know, protect the 8. So where you want to force, how hard you pressure the ball, you probably do that because they have 3 seconds. I feel like people teach them being out here and maybe some things because it's, you take away that pass, you get caught in 3 seconds. But that's what I hate about that rule, is that it kind of teaches some bad defense habits. But again, it's kind of like, okay, once the kid passes it, get back. So we do a sprinting, kind of like a sprint, like that's why we pass it around. And if they have a struggle, hard time passing, that's when the girls just throw a playground ball or a basketball or whatever, so they can practice doing that, and the defenders just practicing coming in. But I always say, when you come back in, you want to be a step closer to wherever that ball is. So if she's over here, again, we're taking, and we're just a little bit, it's like a step. So when the kid's cutting in, what do most kids do? They turn around and they just follow them, right? So what I teach my kids, is denying the passing. So that means you want your stick in front and you're taking her through that way. So if a kid's Josie's at the top and she's going to cut in this way, the goal's right here, So I teach her to stay in front of her. I will actually teach a different way to my kids because I can't give up a righty cut, but for them, it's just being in front because a lot of times they just are behind and they just chase the kid. So I'm always like, you need to be a step closer to the ball. So we practice that. I'll have a kid just stand in the middle. I'll tag her just stand in the middle, and I'll have them do the ball too. And they just practice stepping closer, and the ball goes behind, and step closer. The ball goes on that side, they're stepping closer, the ball's up top. You can teach them to go like that, and get back on this side. But I'm teaching them to be in front and not.
And they're ready to slide for a double team.
But I say, deny the cut. That means you gotta be denied. It means in front, or be in front of the cutter, down in front. And then you actually make them do this stationary. And then another good drill is now they make the attacker cut. So she's live. Right now you gotta stay in front. And she tries to get the ball from a certain point. So we call it the World Cup drill. It's a very well-known drill. We all call it that. Where you have like balls here, 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 here. You could have 5 balls. It's up to you. And then you have a defender in here, and then an attacker. And like I said, at first you just practice them stationary, and she's just adjusting as that ball is in the air, moving her body, being in front of it, and then you have that kid kind of work, so she's trying to stop it. But it's a really good drill to teach. And what do you call that? World Cup. Because it's a 1v1, and it's around the world that passing. So we do that a lot. You could do it with 2 kids inside then too. And that's when we will teach picking, and they practice the picking, the defenders are practicing however you want to teach it. If they're switching or they're staying with their girl. It's very technical. I feel like it's really hard to teach them at this level, but again, I think be in front, try to stop the cut. And I always try to say, think that she wants her right hand, so try to make her go left when they cut. But, so what we do, and it's really important that we teach them to be in a triangle off the ball so that you can see your girl and the ball. So, and I'll say B and a V too, triangle V, whatever helps them, but I will tell them to point. So their sticks in one hand, their arms here, and that they're pointing, okay? And so that the ball moves, you're shifting, making sure you can point and see both, and that's what you're kind of teaching in that middle too. So that's the same concept in the middle and on the perimeter. Being able to see that, being in that triangle. So, like I said, where you guys are going to come into play, how you guys maybe want to coach overall of, we pressure the ball out, everyone else is back on the 8, everyone's learning that, everyone's teaching that across the different teams, that you're not teaching them different styles. So then when you want to force them, so where would you want to force a kid here? A lot of people will force, and that's what you guys need to think about as a program. Do you want to force them out? Do you want to force them in? What I tend to do is use the hash marks. So this is the first one hash here. So anything outside this hash will force out. Whatever is in this way, we force this way. In the college level, what we tend to do is we'll change that a little bit, but force to the help, where the defense defenses, but I think at this level, it's just a simple concept of when they're out here, force to the right hand because they're getting out, you won't give them a shot. In here, force them to their weak hand, force them to their left, because they're really not going to be able to do much there.
Julie, we're gone very fast. We only have about 10 more minutes. Can you
Okay.
just give us an idea of what you think would be an ideal way to run our practices, or what you think? I mean, I know you talked about 30 minutes of skills,
Yeah.
and then
So whatever you want to do, so this is where you have to sit down first and figure out what kind of defense do you want your team to eventually play, what kind of attack things do you think you need to incorporate, and then you kind of break down your practice plans based on that. The other thing we didn't get to is clearing. You have to practice clearing because that is really important. So what we do is, when I make my practices, we have time, we have the drill, the points of emphasis, and then we'll have groups here, so it's already laid out basically before we start practice. And you can put something here like set up if you need to put set up. So we'll usually, so it'll go like this, we'll have warm up, stick work, and then there's usually always an attack concept.
can I stop you right there? For warm up, how much running do you have your girls? Okay, just to loosen up. Nothing. You do expect them to run on
We
their
actually
own?
do a dynamic warm-up, so we don't do like run around a lap and then
Okay.
just static stretching. What we do is put them through a mini warm-up where they're doing like high knees,
Okay.
butt kicks, they're doing sliding karaoke, and then you do some stretches involved in that, they're moving,
Okay.
so the stretching is all involved in that mini warm-up.
Okay.
From line to line,
That's-
right? The way things are going, we're seeing it's the girls line.
Yeah, so that's what we do for warm-ups, usually 10 minutes. You can do it different, you can have everyone warm up together, you can just do it with teams, we have everyone warm up, like, all the 5th graders warm up, all the 6th graders warm up, that type of thing. But then we'll have the practice plan designed like this, so we'll have, I usually give 10 minutes. We'll usually do 5 minutes of partner passing. I would do in the very beginning of your practices, more heavy on this technique and stick work side, and then make those adjustments as you continue to progress with what you want to do. But we'll do clearing concept, so clearing drill. Sometimes it's more of a settled thing where we're focused more on settled attack, settled defense, and what are those drills that we're going to do for those. What is our overall game plan of the defense we want to play? So we'll strategize. Well, we really struggled with this in the game, so then you kind of make your plans according to that. But I think you should overall have an idea of all the different things you want to cover, so you don't lose those core concepts in this too. But there'll be days then we practice draws and clearing and getting the ball back as part of it. So we'll have different things in mind, but it's kind of you have to get the ball to feel, so clearing has to be something you do from the get-go. Draws, how you set up and line up, is something that's also really important. So to practice that, we'll do draws where we just practice the draw, 10 seconds, back to the draw, 10 seconds, back to the draw. If we want to practice more of our defense off the draw or fast breaks off a transition, we'll set up certain drills just based on that. So we kind of take how we do in the scrimmages and stuff like that and kind of then make our game plan based on that. But I think at your level, you want to cover core concepts in all of these. So if you guys can agree on like some sort of format and coaching philosophy of how you want to teach stuff, that's what you really want to do. The game is really, I feel like at this stage, is transition a lot because the ball's on the ground, other teams getting it, whistle blows, it's back and forth. So really teaching them to get in transition